Hello, and welcome to Fusion Writing, where building character meets creating structure. We have so much fun today talking about our incredible topics. Victoria, I won't take any of your time. Go for it.
Okay, so if you are a subscriber to the Anti-Novelist Monthly newsletter, you should have received issue 3, where I talked about narrative dynamics. And so that is basically how you shape and pace your story. And in that newsletter, we use the convention of framing and boundaries as ways to shape and pace the story. But if you don't want to have breaks, like, for example, using flashbacks or inserting pieces out of order in nonlinear time, if you just don't want to dive into that complicated water, then you do have a lot of other tools at your disposal. And that's what I want to bring your attention to in this episode. We're talking about something that's called narrative time or duration. So think of it this way. You have several levels of time in your story. And if you're just writing a straightforward story, your main character wakes up, they go through the course of their day, and they go to bed. The events of the story happen over the course of that one day. Nothing crazy, no flashbacks, nothing weird or out of time. So that sounds pretty straightforward, right? Well, it is, but it doesn't have to be boring or dull or draggy. There's still a lot of stuff you can do within that time period. And a perfect example of that is the novel The Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown. Some of you already know that I'm working on a course where I'm creating a textbook, and I analyze 2 novels in that textbook. And Dan Brown's book is one of them for that very reason. It takes place in 24 hours. But boy, he packs so much into that 24 hours, it's crazy. So how might you do that if you want to do it in a simple way? Well, you're going to tackle the problem of duration. So think of it like this. You're sitting at your desk or wherever it is that you write, and you're writing out your story. And maybe it takes you 30 days to write out that entire story from the time your main character wakes up to the time they go to bed. So that's a 30-day duration for you as the author. We already know the story takes place over the course of one day. So to keep it simple, let's just say 24 hours. Well, think of it this way. If it took you 30 days to write it, and there are 24 hours in your story days, if we fudge the math and make it a little fuzzy, that's you spending 1 day per story hour to produce that work, okay? So when you break it down and think about, okay, so for every day that I spent writing, that's 1 hour in my character's time, that's an issue of duration. So then you can start to think, okay, now, what if I want to collapse 8 of those hours, and that's the time that the character is asleep? That doesn't count, right? That doesn't count as part of your 24. But it still takes you the same amount of time to write the story. So then you know that you've got 16 hours left for your character's actual action to take place. That gives you 2 days to write each of those time periods. So once you start to pull back and look at how can I put this story together and contrast the amount of time that I have to write it versus the amount of time that's passing in the story, you can start to line out how to get that story written based on the amount of time that you have against what happens in the story. That's one way of looking at duration. Now let's look at it from a different direction. What if you know that you want your character to go from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.? All right, so you've got the course of let's say a business day. Well, maybe you want the time that the reader spends from 8 to 10 a.m. to be very short. You don't want to detail out that the character wakes up, they turn off their alarm, they put on their house shoes, they put on their robe, they go to the bathroom, they go to the kitchen and make coffee. There's a million things that can happen in those couple of hours. But you don't want to bore your reader with that. So instead, you're going to maybe have a paragraph that the sun came up, it was a beautiful day, and then bam, your character's in their car driving to work. So you've skipped over the duration of the boring stuff so that you can save that time in the narrative for the exciting stuff. So here is your challenge for this week. Think about, how do you want your reader to spend time with your character? Because if you do it well in the opening, then your reader is interested in what's going to happen to this person, interested enough that they'll spend a few hundred pages with this person. So think about, how can I use the allotted time in my story to show my reader the most interesting aspects of what's happening to that character? And then challenge yourself to sketch that out so that you actually know what it looks like on paper. You could dip into your plot box and pull out some of those plot beats or plot points that you want to focus on the time that you're writing. You could do a free writing, free rough draft, and just noodle around with what this character is thinking, what could be happening, how much time do you want to spend in their head. Maybe you draft it out. I'm going to spend 2 pages writing what's going on in their mind, and then I'm going to spend 2 pages with other characters reflecting back what's happening in the environment with the events. There's a million ways you can divide this stuff up, but just start thinking about, when I'm sitting here writing and I'm taking my time, how much time do I want the reader to spend with my character? That's the question of the week. Start thinking about the duration of your story and what you're sharing. So, Kathleen, what have you got for patriotism?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Victoria, for your wonderful thing on duration and how to control time when you don't want to jump around in your story. I think that's a great idea. I love it. And the idea of pacing yourself versus the clock in your story is another great idea. So thank you so much. Well, with patriotism, we're talking about that strange character trait, which is about how our character behaves when he's functioning as a member of a group, when the group is performing something, when they're in lockstep, where it's not so much a collaboration of individuals bouncing ideas across one another. They've got their blinders on and they're all acting in one way, boom, 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 boom. And so we have to, that is what we're getting at in the character trait of patriotism. It ties to where we think of patriotism when you think of the military. The people that join the military are certainly being patriotic, and they are marching when the unit marches, and they're taking the orders, and they're performing as a block. But when we talk about it as a character trait, and how do we write stories around this, it's when does our character stop thinking independently and start just succumbing to groupthink, be it for the good or for not such good purposes, because not only is it service that counts, it also includes mob behavior. When the character's acting as a part of the group has gone a little wacky as a whole, and it's just hanging out there, and the character has stopped thinking. So now we're going to take that idea, now that we've refreshed it, how does that change in the different character profile positions? Do we have to look at how does it behave differently? Well, our guy with the pinnacle, we know what characterizes the pinnacle position, not thinking. There's not any thinking going on. Well, what could that mean with respect to patriotism? Well, the simplest way is if that's the guy that just runs on along, doesn't care what the group is doing, why they're doing it, what they're up to, doesn't ask himself any questions about it. He just goes along with the group without thinking anything about it. So that's what it looks like in the pinnacle position. Okay, well, let's look at the wing position. The wing position is usually the naggy position. The character knows he ought to be doing some thinking, but he's not. It's troubling him that he's just going along with the group. But he's not breaking from the group. He's not taking the steps of saying, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. He's marching along, but he's a little worried about what is going on here. That's your wing guy. And now in the rudder position, this is where the thinking cap is on. And the character's saying, is this the right thing to do? And now we have to look at, well, what kind of questions do you have to ask yourself before you go along with groupthink? You have to say, well, is what this group up to some good? Is the group doing good work? Is this a good thing to join? That's a pretty important question, because if not, hopefully our character will have the strength to say, not me. The next question that the character has to ask themselves is, are they doing the right thing for the wrong reason? Are they heading down a direction, but the person in charge really has an ulterior motive of where he hopes to redirect them? I might think about that. And then the third one is this a good way of going about it? Maybe you're clear that the motive is there, the purpose is there, but is this the right path? Or is this a suboptimal, not so good path? Are we trading off too many things that are valuable to get this one goal? So those are the three questions that have to go through the mind of the character that's trying to decide, am I going to submerge myself and get into the groupthink? So now we come, well, then what does that mean when the character is in the anchor position? Hopefully, when the character is in the anchor position, that means that the rudder choices are in the past. They took place. And the character has decided that, yes, all those three questions line out correctly. A good choice, a good aim, and a good method. And now our character is ready to submerge himself into the group. Now, in the anchor position, he's still going to be maybe there might be something that causes him to have some doubts. And here, the doubts that a character might end up with in an anchor position is, oh, am I giving up too much personally for this? Am I sacrificing too much of myself? Yes, this is a good cause, but and so he might be a little fragile. That group membership might not be 100% secure, but it's pretty darn secure. All right. So then what does it mean when it's in the base position? When it's down here secure? Well, that means that your character will have asked those three questions automatically before he would ever join the group. And not only that, he would have already committed to saying, this is worth enough that I know what I'm giving up and I'm putting it aside, giving 2 years of my life, or I'm giving 22 hours of my time that's chosen, and it's not going to be double thought. It's going to be single-mindedly ready to work within the group. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to have total blinders on if he sees something amiss arising within the group. Oh, no. He'll have the courage to say, whoa, whoa, not so. And not only that, in the initial evaluation, if he sees this group isn't up to any good, that character with it in the base is not going to be persuaded to join that group. Okay, so that is how it functions. Victoria, how might this blend with where you're going?
Well, it's kind of silly that it always works out, because as you're speaking, particularly about how the traits move based on where they are in the character trait positions, what a great way to experiment with problems of duration. Just someone going through an event or an experience or a thought process that is moving them from having the trait in one position to another is a perfect way to decide, how do I want to use time? Do I want to show them going through that transition, or do I just want to show the before and the after? Two very different ways of representing how that transition unfolds, where the one takes pages and pages to go through it and unpack it and portray it, and the other one just shows the before and after, and boom, you move on with the story. So play with these things, guys, because you never know what you're going to discover when you start looking at time and ways to use it, especially when you combine it with all of the possibilities that the character traits offer. Nobody should ever have writer's block, because there's so much to play with. So if people want to join us, Kathleen, where might they find us?
Well, 2 different places now, because before I tell you about LiLLiPub, which I always talk about, we have our newsletters, and you can get more about each of our topics by signing up for our monthly newsletters. And if you're not up to that speed yet, or especially if you are, be sure to join us in LiLLiPub. LiLLiPub, it's where we hang out when we're not in YouTube land. So be sure to join us in LiLLiPub, where not only do you get to play with these writing tips and learn how to do them, but you get to practice writing and join us every week in our writing calls. See you over there. Bye-bye.